Hi everyone, it's Carolyn here with Cello Discovery, and I think that this is an issue I wanted to address with all of you, and it's about knowing, is it you that's the problem that's not making the sound that you want, or is it your cello? And there's a million trillion things we could talk about if it's you, but there is a few things that could be wrong with your cello that really is causing the problem, and I just wanted to make you aware of these things. So the first thing is, you probably know this already, but every cello has what we call a wolf tone, and a wolf tone is this sort of sympathetic vibration that's happening in the instrument for this particular hertz level, where you start to hear this little thumpy sound. The strings are not vibrating properly. I have a much more detailed explanation about the wolf tone, and I'll put a link below to my blog so you can read and hear the wolf tone. And it most commonly happens somewhere between the F and the F sharp on the D string, sometimes the E. I've got a video of my student that I'm going to put here so you can hear what the wolf tone sounds like. And that's pretty extreme, but if you have a wolf tone, you're going to know, because it's just very hard to make a sound there. It also happens on the same E, F, F sharp over here on the G string. So you can't do anything about that except for find ways to eliminate that wolf tone. There's a couple different things you can do. There's a little brass piece that you can put on the string behind the bridge that basically moves the wolf tone to a different place on the cello. So instead of it being in a spot where we play all the time, you're going to move that wolf tone to somewhere that you're not going to hear it as much, because you're not going to go play there that often. So that's one option. The other one is this Krentz Wolf Eliminator. It's not a cheap thing. I think it costs around $150 US, but it actually cuts out that tone, that wolf tone, and so you're eliminating it completely with this. It takes a little time to learn how to adjust it, and weather changes the wolf tone a little bit. You might get that Krentz just dialed in perfectly, and then all of a sudden the weather gets really dry or really cold or really humid, and the wolf tone is back. So you have to adjust this a little bit. But if it's your wolf tone, you can take care of that, and then you cannot have to fight those couple of notes as hard as maybe you are. The next thing is strings. Now I would say probably on average the lifespan of a set of strings is somewhere around 1 or 2 years. And even if you say, well, I only played the cello 8 times in that time period, it's still possible that your strings are going bad when the tension is on the strings for that long of a period of time. It just wears the strings out. Just imagine being stretched for that long. So with tension on the strings that long, they're losing a little bit of their volume and their clarity. Change your strings as often as you can afford. Unfortunately, cello strings are very expensive. Do not get the cheapest set of strings, because they tend to sound really tinny and very trebly and metallic, and you will not like that sound, and it will be very disappointing. Just get the most expensive strings that you can afford at that time. There's a lot of different strings that you can try, so unfortunately some of this is trial and error to find a set that works with your cello. But your strings could definitely be a problem. When they get old, they get really tubby sounding, and they don't vibrate like they should. They're not clear. The tones don't respond very quickly when you draw the bow. So strings make a huge difference. And if you get a brand new set of strings, even if you're a novice at cello, you're going to immediately hear how much more brilliant and clear the sound is. The next thing, which happens fairly often if you're new to playing the cello, it's a bit of an awkward instrument, and unfortunately we have a tendency to bump it because we're not used to carrying it. It might hit furniture, it might hit door entries, so you have to be really careful. And if you did bump it, there's a pretty good chance that you could have got a crack in the instrument. And once you get a crack in the instrument, it definitely adversely affects the sound. It does not resonate properly. There's a lot of things that happen. Most common places for cracks tend to be separations along the side, and I have a very old cello, and unfortunately a lot of these seams and things open up often, so I waited to make this video until I once again had another crack in my instrument. I'm going to knock on the cello. This is the test that you can do. we'll knock right around the perimeter, and what we're checking for to see if the top has separated any from the sides or if the back has separated any from the sides. And we're going to knock all the way around the perimeter of this instrument. I won't go all the way around, but I'll just show you how we do it. And you're going to get used to what that timbre sounds like. What does that tone sound like when the wood is closed and sealed and sounds right? Then I'm going to show you what it sounds like where the crack is on my instrument, so you can really listen and hear that it changes timbre. So these seams are all closed. You can hear that knocking. Now if I go to the back of my instrument, and I'm going to knock around here, you can hear that I think it's closed in there. Once I get, can you hear that? You can hear two pieces of wood clapping together. That's a seam opening right here. Not here, but right there. So that kind of clang clang tells you you've got a seam open, and you're definitely going to suffer in your sound. Other places where it happens periodically is the worst case scenario is that the sound post, which is inside the instrument connecting the belly, the front to the back, crack. I mean, it gets too much pressure. Maybe it was pushed really hard on the bridge and it made a crack in the back. So there could be a crack back here. Sometimes you get cracks along the front, and that unfortunately adversely affects the sound too. And a luthier is going to be the person that can usually check that. Sometimes if you're used to your instrument and you're feeling the instrument and something doesn't feel right, you might feel a little crack opening. You can do the paper test. The paper test is you can actually get a very thin piece of paper and see if that crack is actually open. Does the paper slide in there or not? Like for me, the paper definitely slides in where that opening is. So it's a clear opening right here for me. But that's the other thing. So cracks in your instrument, and they happen a lot. So get that checked if you're suspicious of it, if it's just not sounding right. Your strings and your wolf tone. There are lots of other things. The bridge sometimes is also an issue. You could have a bridge that's too low. I mean, I do like a fairly low bridge because it's easier to play in here, but there's a point when you can't get any lower because the strings can't vibrate properly. So if your bridge is too low, those strings don't have enough room to vibrate before they hit the fingerboard. So you might have to get your bridge adjusted, and your bridge might be in the wrong location. It's possible that it got bumped at some point and it's affecting the sound. If you look at the little notches on the F holes here on the instrument, and the very center of the bridge should basically line up with the little notches there. If it's off, that's definitely affecting your sound. And then lastly, the sound post. Like I mentioned, the sound post is inside under the foot of the bridge. If that gets bumped, or the top and the bottom of the little post is not firmly against the top and the bottom of the instrument, maybe it's tilted a little bit, you're not getting the full resonance of the cello, and so you don't sound as good that way. So those are the most common things that I see that could be happening in your cello, and you don't even know it as a newer player. But once you get them fixed, you'll definitely see a big improvement in your tone. So that's my take on that, and there's lots of things that I could teach you on Cello Discovery about getting a really good tone that are issues that could be that you could be learning more about as far as hand positioning, weight, bow arm, vibrato, all that good stuff. So go check out Cello Discovery, and that might help you become a better player.